What's up, friends and family? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Herps. I'm Steven, and today I want to talk about something that's been coming up actually quite a bit. Something I don't normally talk about, a little off subject, but it's come across in a few different ways, and that is how to ask your parents how to get a pet snake. Before we get started, though, let me introduce you to my Rosie Boa Summer. A Rosie Boa is a common choice for a first pet or a beginner pet, as they are easily handled, small. They come in a lot of different colors. They're a beautiful first pet snake. But for a lot of you, that might mean having a very important conversation with your parents. So, how would I do that? Let me break it down for you. So let's be honest, snakes are amazing pets, but they need someone who's responsible. So I'd want to demonstrate that first and foremost. How would I do that? I'd do what they ask me to. I'd do my chores. I'd clean my room. I would help around the kitchen if we're cooking dinner. I would do my homework, and I do all these things without asking, including extra things too, if I could, if I'm really trying to suck up, as it were. But it's not just about that. It is a really important life lesson that you have to learn how to do your own chores and take care of your own things at a time. So for me, that proved that, if I'm able to do something like that, then I'm able to take care of a snake, because a snake needs someone who is responsible. And if you can't really take care of yourself and help out around the house, then your parents are going to get stuck with a snake, and they're not going to want to do that. They're not going to want to take care. You have to hold on to Rosie Boas. Prove to them that you're mature enough to take care of a snake on your own. Next, you're going to have to consider the cost. Owning a snake like this is not exactly a cheap venture. It doesn't have to be crazy expensive, but you need to be aware of that. So you're going to either need to find a way to make it worth their while, prove that it's a valuable hobby that you'll spend time working with, as opposed to other things that might cost money, like sports or music lessons or those sort of things. Maybe trade in something that you don't like for a reptile. But it's important to be aware of those costs. If you're earning an allowance, you're going to need to pitch in for that as well, and at least have an expectation for the budget. How much is the food going to cost? They don't eat as much as a dog or a cat, but they do eat, and you're going to have to continue to supply them with food, of course, and bedding and other upgrades as well. So be aware of that. The initial cost for a beginner snake, for most species that are commonly found in the sort of entry beginner level hobby, you can get them set up for as little as $150, but usually you're looking more in the $500 and up range for a complete full setup for everything you need for the first year of the snake's life. And then there's maintenance fees on top of that. So just be aware of that, and make sure that that's something that you're prepared to address. And ultimately, for the life of the animal, a $500 initial startup cost, it's not a lot compared to what you continue to pay throughout an animal's life. And with all animals, you should have money as well, and an expectation of some veterinarian bills. It's not too regular with snakes, but when you go, it can be expensive. So have that in mind. So now let's talk about research, okay? So I wanted to show my parents that I'd done my homework, that I know how big the snake's going to get. For a Rosie Boa, that's about 3 to 5 feet. And if I'm really doing my research, I could tell you which snake is going to get how big, or at least have a good understanding, just based on the locations. And that's all from things you pick up in books, talking on internet forums as well, or just talking to some of the folks at the reptile stores. Because there's a wide range of reptile breeders out there on social media, but if you don't go to social media, you might want to go to a reptile-specific store. So do that instead of going to the big box stores. Some of the big box stores are good and they have knowledgeable people, but in a lot of cases it's unreliable and undependable. So you can get really mixed and really bad advice, and sometimes dangerous advice. So I recommend finding your nearest reptile-specific store. It may be a little bit further away, but it's going to be worth it because you can talk to someone who should typically know a little bit more about reptiles. But there's a lot of information online, and I highly suggest getting your parents to join communities too, to learn more if you're not online yourself. Lastly, I'd really try and explain how I was committed, how I was passionate, that this isn't a phase or a whim, that this is an animal I'm really curious about. Find whatever personal connection you have. For me, dealing with reptiles is about connecting to animals that have been on the planet for hundreds of millions of years, and opening up myself to that sort of connection to nature that I really think is incredible to bring inside your home. I love dogs and cats, but to me, snakes are a very special kind of pet. So that's what I would have told my parents. And I want to clue you in on one little secret that almost always works. It's foolproof, but again, remember, you have to be responsible already. You have to be aware of the cost, and you have to have a plan for that, okay? You have to understand the budget. But one thing that I've learned always works on mom is a handwritten note. If you break out a handwritten note to mom explaining why it is that you would like a snake and how they can help you get that, that goes a long way. It's kind of a dirty weapon, but moms love notes. And if you have an allowance or you have some kind of income, then spend a little money on a card and write a note on the inside too. Even if it's a letter on the inside, because then you're doubling down. It's a card and a letter. It's phenomenal. Moms love that. They go crazy for it. Now, I actually never tried that on my parents, but I think if I had, it probably would have worked. So, I mean, what do you think, right? You could tell me, leave a comment down below if you think it would have worked. But I also understand that in some cases, I just have to be patient. That's a big part of it too. Not everyone's ready to have a snake as a pet. And that might be your parents, that might be you. For my parents, it wasn't really the case. But I think now they'd probably be open to it, knowing what I've put them through already. But it's up to them ultimately. So be patient with your parents. Let them learn more about them as well, and what it is that you love so much about them. And when it's right, it's right. It may just not be in the budget either, because just like dogs and cats, snakes can be really expensive, and sometimes that's just not in the budget at the moment. So be understanding of that as well, and I certainly am, and I'm grateful for the animals I have behind me, but there's a reason why I have these now and not when I was a younger man. So be patient and take the time, and when you're ready, you'll get them. But tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments. Hit the like and subscribe button. Please join us on Patreon. Join the conversation on Discord. This is the first in a series of videos that I want to discuss on snakes as family pets. I hope you'll stick around for the rest. If you ask me questions on the comments in these videos, I'll do my best to answer them later on in the series.